Welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast, where frontline sales leaders teach you how to build and scale an outbound sales team. So welcome to the show, everybody. I am Collin Stewart. I'm your co-host today. Today, I'm joined by Mr. Derek Grant, the VP of Commercial Sales at SalesLoft's, and he's going to teach us how they run their account-based sales playbook. Welcome to the show, Derek.
Thanks, Collin. Really excited to be here. You know, I was thinking about account-based, and account-based is really the continuing evolution of what predictable revenue started all those years ago. It's really the next efficient and effective thing in sales, and so I really think your audience will enjoy talking about this.
Mm-hmm. I love how all the sort of enabling technologies have enabled us to bring down this strategy, these tactics that normally were reserved for people that were selling $1 million deals. You know, I used to have a list of 10 customers, right? And it was 100% account based. You know, there's 30 people at each of those companies, but that was worth quite a bit. Exceptionally hard to manage in a Excel sheet back in the day.
Well, and that's one of the things I think people get wrong about account-based is account-based sales is really nothing new. If you are a rep who has a patch and you've got account lists, you can't sell to anyone but those accounts. That is your account-based strategy. And then you may tier them with your A accounts because they either have a high propensity to buy or they have bought in the past. All the way through to your C's and D's where, you know, you don't even really bother to reach out to them in many cases because they're vended, they've been aggressive towards your company in the past. So the account-based selling side of it is nothing new. What has really moved forward is the account-based marketing side and really providing air cover for those great reps. And marketing, I think, is in this sort of ugly adolescence period right now where they're moving from lead-based KPIs to more pipeline generation KPIs. And, you know, as you think about all the companies that help them do account-based marketing, none of them are about generating 10,000 leads this month. They're about advancing the $1 million deal that you have in your pipeline forward. And so it's a little bit of a shift for marketers right now as we think about account-based everything.
Mm-hmm. And it's coming down the pipeline. It's no longer just $1 million deals. It's everything down to anything that's being sold hand to hand by a salesperson.
That's exactly right. You know, as you think about commercial sales at SalesLoft, that's defined as 100 to 1,500 person accounts. And so we actually are using it on accounts that aren't necessarily the IBMs and the Salesforce.coms of the world. But, you know, one thing I would tell you, and I know we were thinking about this earlier, we talked a little bit about mistakes made, and this is one that I'll maybe jump ahead on, is there is a point where things are too small to be account-based, and we actually figured that out sort of both by accident and by wild frustration. As you think about account-based, it's personalization, it's marketing, it's cross-channel, it's swag, it's all events, all these different things. And at some point, a company gets small enough that you're really not hitting a lot of people. They're not creating a lot of content. The company is not growing in a fast enough clip that you can find relevant things and compelling events to hook onto. And so there is a point, and it does get toward the bottom, where account-based is not a silver bullet. As we all know, silver bullet's only great for killing werewolves, and so not necessarily great for killing accounts in an account-based strategy, but there is a point where you can get too far below the line and you'll try and run an account-based play, and what you'll find is it is hard to create the play. The costs are prohibitive as to what the upside of the account is, and so you'll find yourself oftentimes at some point know when to say, we're going to go mass market, we're going to go greenfield on these accounts at the bottom of our pyramid.
So in your experience, or where was that lower limit for you where you said, hey, below this line, account-based doesn't make sense?
I think it has to do with the maturity of the market you're selling to. And so we focus on VC-backed SaaS. And so it's a company for us that we will not be able to do account-based, and we won't even look at it as one of our account-based companies that we're focusing on if they don't have at least our 3 primary buying personas. And so that speaks to a level of sophistication. They're going to have a sales leader. They're going to potentially have an inside selling or sales development type of function, but it's the sales operation person that really is the third leg of that stool. And if they're not there, then what you think is they're not necessarily mature enough at this point to be able for us to truly run an account-based play on. And then also it has a lot to do, but if you're selling to multi-million-dollar accounts, then you may not necessarily feel some of the experiences that we had. I think it differs per industry, but we found it to be about 100 people, a company that's unfunded, a company that doesn't have a sales ops people. That's where trying to run a true account-based play began to become problematic.
Gotcha. Okay. So tell me, why would you like, this sounds like a ton of work. Why would you want to do an account-based or run an account-based playbook in the at all? Like what's the added benefit here?
Well, and so I can sort of take you through our journey to account-based. So SalesLoft was founded back in 2013, and we were selling data. And data is one of those things, and it was getting leads out of LinkedIn. It was the most obvious value prop of all time. It's like, hey, salesperson, do you get leads out of LinkedIn? Or, hey, salesperson, do you want air? Like that would be basically it. And so anyone could buy it. There was not necessarily a level of sophistication on the buying company side, so you didn't need all the personas. It was something that reps would buy individually just to be able to get this value out of our prospector tool. And so we hired a bunch of reps, and we said, go greenfield. And so they were all going out, and they would go to LinkedIn, and they'd grab the best accounts and the best people. And then we hired another round of sales development reps, and we're like, go and find the best you can. And they got not exactly the right accounts, but the right people. And then we said, we got another crop, and we're like, go and find the right people. Now they got the wrong accounts, wrong people. And what we started seeing was that when reps were left to determine what accounts were the ones that they should go after, they oftentimes went after, they skewed low from a size perspective because those are easier to break into. They can come at a small company like the Tide, and they felt like that was the easiest way to get in. Now, I would argue that fact because the larger the company is, the more points of ingress, the more sympathetic ears you're liable to find. But in this iteration of SalesLoft, that's what happened. And we started seeing some really weird flips. We saw DQ rates starting to go way up. We started to see ASP go way down. And it was really based on the fact that as we scaled our team and without guardrails, first mover advantage, the oldest reps had the best accounts and they were killing it with it. And the newest reps, we literally were hiring new people who were turning over things that are embarrassing. And so our thought process was, there's got to be a better way. How can we help give guidance and give directive? And so it was right as account-based was starting to peak as a practice. And that's when we decided to put marketing in charge of help generate the list, help us find these great accounts. And then from there, let's jointly run plays against these. Marketing, you're going to do things like display ads, direct mail, swag drops, branded headphone pilots, these sorts of things. And we on the other side will be doing email, video, social from a selling side, tag teaming the account from an AE and SDR perspective. And so that was really what was the pivotal event, was the high DQs, the low ASPs that we started seeing in that really, really early, well, sort of the middle phase of SalesLoft's journey. And really at the end of our data selling days, we started seeing that. And that's when it became so important. But what ended up happening was we initially looked for accounts that looked like the accounts we were selling to. We use a predictive analytics platform called Everstring, which is wonderful. If you haven't used it, it's crazy good. And so Everstring was finding us more accounts like the rabbits that we were selling before. And so now we started trying to run this. We're like, we're going to go account-based. And for those of you listening at home, account-based can be a lot like sex in high school. A lot of people talking about it, not a lot of people doing it. Right? And so we're going to go account-based. And we're like, let's go. And we didn't know what we were doing necessarily. And we started trying to run account-based plays on these really, really small accounts that were the ones that looked like the ones we had sold in our day-to-days. And it really sort of lent itself to a lot of frustration on the side of the reps. The symptoms were low conversion rates, low email response rates, those sort of high DQ rates. But really, when we dug deeper, it's like we're just calling on the wrong accounts. If we were saying these same words to accounts that really an account-based play would be warranted for, they would totally get it, and they would be on the maturity scale and on the size and scope scale, companies that would adopt our technology. And so that was some of the transition. So sort of a long way to answer that. Why would you want to do it, though? I think that having marketing and sales aligned on one account and doing anything to get in that account is really, really powerful for your business. And the accounts you're going after, these aren't Joe's Computer Shack. These are IBM, SAP, the accounts that beget other accounts, the accounts that other people, when you drop their name, oh, let me drop this really quick. And we're working with a little company we've heard of called Salesforce. People are like, what? And that then gives credibility. That one account can lend itself a great amount of credibility moving on down the pipe. So that's why account-based versus doing a bunch of rabbits. Focus on the one elephant that you can get a lot of mileage out of.
Gotcha. As opposed to chasing the little squirrels that you're not really going to use to feed your family at all.
Well, and they don't necessarily carry a great deal of name recognition today. If they're VC backed, some of them will in the future, but they don't necessarily have a ton of short-term marketing value. And if they're small, the way that our product is priced is based on seats. So they have small revenue upside. And you start sort of doing the math and you're like, these aren't really the accounts. Having a lot of these is great, but those aren't really necessarily the focus. We'd like to go after accounts that have more, that are name brands, that have more seats in them. And so that's really where you focus your account-based energies, on those types of companies. So
you mentioned that when you let just the reps go wild, they were going after the wrong accounts. How did you solve that? Tell me, like, what was your solution?
So marketing, and we have a terrific marketing team here. They came back with an idea that they called the TAM project, Total Addressable Marketplace project. And they went and took a look, and I've seen a slide of it where they have the total CRM market, and that's 32 billion if I remember correctly. And then it's like our top 5 industries, and that's like 350 million. And then it's like who we're serving today. And so marketing came back with this data, and it began to make us ask the question, they seem to think they know where their target accounts are. How could they help? And so it was really reaching across the aisle and going out and asking for marketing help, which they were more than happy to provide. But what I would say is, although it was no longer cats and dogs, which you oftentimes find between sales and marketing, something that did happen that we didn't really expect was marketing found accounts that had all the technographics. So they use Salesforce. They're in this industry, and the demographics, right? A number of accounts. But then you get in there and you look, and they're like horrible fits to the eye whenever you look at each individual one. And so we went through a couple of iterations 2 cycles where we had marketing just generate the list and we blindly went after it. About midway through, we realized sales has got to have some ownership of scrubbing this list beforehand. And so once we realized that, once a friend of mine that's a CRO here in town said, here's the thing, if all of your energy is focused on all the wrong accounts, you're going to have the results further down the funnel are going to be less than stellar. And so his guidance was really zone in, and I'm glad he did. A guy named Jim Norton over at Qgenda, and he gave that guidance, and sales has been much more involved in the vetting of the list created by marketing.
No, is that your ideal customer profiles and your personas, or is that how you come to them?
Yeah, and so if you think sort of the journey to account base, I think it really does start with a really tight ICP. And so we really went out and we said, all right, great, we've sort of written our ICP down, but then in the greenfield world, we were not necessarily sticking to the ICP. So we gave them what we wanted. They brought back a list. Then one of the next steps is, how many salespeople do they have? Do they have sales operations? So there's sort of a manual scrubbing process behind that to make sure that these companies, that they have all 3 personas we call on. And then if they do, then our reps will begin the process of working them through their cadence.
Gotcha. Can you tell me about how you segment? I know you've got a couple of different versions, or sort of like, how do you guys think about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So let me pop up a slide really quick, and I'll just quickly share this. This is something that we did recently for a CEO forum. And so we think about the marketplace in this way. It's taking our accounts, and we've got about 2,600 accounts that we run through an ICP model. And it's breaking them out and being really, really objective about where they belong in the world. And so as you think about our ICP ones, this only represents about 1% of our total accounts. And when you think about the different types of plays we're running, we'll do nearly anything to be able to sign these types of accounts. I mentioned EverString earlier. They had an interesting way of thinking about their target accounts, and they said, we think about marketing as a percentage of the revenue they would give us. And so when they were selling to a big name cloud company, one of the leading cloud companies, one of the things they did is they actually took their executives, they put them on a helicopter, flew them out to drive exotic sports cars all day. And that's powerful. And I'm sure that was super expensive, but they were willing to do that because of both the marketing brand recognition associated with this company, as well as the potential upside of this account, which they ended up getting. And then we think about ICP2 and ICP3. And just as you're doing the segmentation, each one of these, your level of marketing collaboration is higher, the higher the number is. So, the lower the number is. So ICP1 has got a lot of marketing input. ICP2 has got some. ICP3 is almost exclusively programmatic marketing. So it's just sort of, display ads through something like Terminus, retargeting through ad roll. It doesn't get a lot of super human marketing touch where for our ICP 1s and 2s, they get a lot of things out of marketing that are really powerful, including direct mail, including swag drops, custom swag drops, and some of these other, even for one of our ICP 1s recently, we parked a food truck outside of their office and let them know that as a gift from SalesLoft, we were sponsoring lunch that day. And so just a way to be, and again, that may seem expensive. It really isn't all that expensive compared to what the upside of the account is, but it's a high impact thing that we wouldn't necessarily do for an ICP3.
Right on.
And then on the MCP, these are effectively there is some flaw with these accounts. If you were looking at them, they 4 of the 5 ICP things they have, but maybe not the 5th. And so these are ones that we don't necessarily run account-based plays against. This really is the ones where you begin to get into they're too small or not necessarily high enough up the maturity curve from a technology perspective that an account-based play would work. And so we're not supporting those with marketing, and we're using a little bit more from an automation perspective to engage with those MCP or minimal customer profile accounts.
That was going to be my next question. What is MCP? So you'll still market to them, but just more in that traditional automated, mindless marketing automation type of way.
Yes, and I don't necessarily love mindless marketing automation way. A way that we thought about it was we do serve 3 primary personas. It's the operations person, it's the sales leader, and it is the high velocity inside seller, whether that is from an inside sales or from a sales development perspective. And then we went out and we did some things to try and get a feel for what we thought would be most important to them. And we had a project that we called our Hypothesis of Need project. And the idea behind Hypothesis of Need was just the idea that we were going to go and say, what do we think is relevant to these folks? John Barrows is so smart to talk about why you, why now. This really is the why you. It doesn't necessarily answer why now. And I think that's a piece that is missing in a lot of these, to your point, mindless automated campaigns. But it just allows us to be able to go with some value props that we think will be relevant to them. And so these are going to be a lot less personal, and they're going to be ones that some of them and some percentage of those are going to be deployed in an automated fashion. And these are, to your point, they're plentiful, but they're not necessarily ones that have maybe all of the things we want in an ICP. So we still want to be relevant to them. We still want to be helpful. We still want to serve them, but we don't necessarily want to have a ton of human and marketing dollars going toward.
That's fair. That's all I meant by the mindless marketing automation, is that there was no human effort going towards that sort of bottom tier there.
Yeah, that's right.
So I love the sort of stack ranked ICPs and the sort of top 1% and so on and so forth. Where do your personas fit in here? Because I feel like this is sort of a bit of a transition.
Yep.
Where do personas sit in this, in this step?
Well, and so the way that we think about our go-to-market is we have 3 different cadences which speak to 3 different personas. And so in order to help our reps be as efficient and effective as possible, what we've done is we have built these hypotheses of need-centric messages. And then we say, whenever we get a new account, we will take someone from each practice, from each persona, and we will move them into a cadence, and we will begin the process of communicating with those. By having 3 separate cadences, where the power comes in is, the VP of sales cares about pipeline. They don't care about efficiency, where the person at SDR inside sales leader cares about efficiency, where the sales ops person cares more about reportability and integration with current systems. And so it requires our reps to do less changing and sort of customizing for each template. They can still personalize, but they already have something teed up that we think will resonate with the person that they're communicating with.
Gotcha. And so you're segmenting your personas now by basically job title.
That's right. And so we actually have, from a technology perspective, we have a process builder built in Salesforce.com that looks for permutations. And so it'll take VP of sales, VP period sales, VP, WW of sales, and it's able to look for those different permutations and then effectively roll it into a locked formula field that says, this is an executive sales leader. And we actually don't personalize based on title. This is maybe a little bit of this may be something that is eye-opening to people, or it may be something that's not. But we actually personalize the message. Hey, when we speak to other sales leaders, as opposed, because if you use title there, it's like when we speak to other VPs of global inside sales effectiveness, it's like that you don't talk to I'm the only person on earth who has that title. And
Yeah.
so by using title, it either requires you to go in and personalize and scrub and shorten and standardize each one, or you can use something like a persona field to help drive relevancy with those people. Again, why you, but not necessarily the why now.
Love it. So instead of saying, just like you said, the VP of commercial inside sales for North America West, you'd say sales leaders.
I talk to sales leaders like you every day, and what they tell us is this, this, and this, or some of the pains they have. I actually got one of those emails the other day when I speak to other VP, commercial sales, leader. It's just sort of super awkward, and it becomes paper thin. And really, what we want to do is gain economies of scale without losing sincerity. And so that doesn't look sincere. It doesn't look authentic. It's not the way a human would speak.
Yeah, you may as well leave the merge tags in at that stage.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So we found persona to be great. It's like an inside sales leader, a SalesLoft's pro, and some of those things. So it makes the templates much easier to write because they support there's no permutations. It's just the one merge that would go in there.
Yeah.
It's written more in human language.
Gotcha. And it's a human reviewing that just to make sure these all make sense?
So there's not necessarily a human reviewing that. So we use automation to be able to pull them in. Well, actually, I take that back. So the one in the MCPs, which are heavily focused on automation, the ones that we're not necessarily running an account-based play against, the ones we're not necessarily running a lot of human work against, the very first step is a step that's called research. So automation will pull them in and it will drop them into the appropriate cadence based on persona and based on some matching rules that we have. It puts them on the right journey, but the rep needs to go in and eyeball it. And they need to make sure that there's not, some weird thing, right? The first name is in all caps, or the company name is LLC Inc. Incorporated Worldwide, PTY, whatever the sort of things. Because again, those don't look human. Those don't look authentic. And so we shift in those MCP accounts, we shift the focus from the rep actually executing the steps to getting the steps ready to be executed in a much more scalable fashion. Now in our ICP 1, 2, and 3, the reps are totally at the wheel. They're not sitting in the passenger seat. They are running all of the play themselves. And so they go in and they are, Google had this idea of 10-80-10, personalize the top 10%, stick with the template in the middle, and then personalize a PS line. So our reps are going out and finding relevancy. To Barros's why now, right? And they're saying they're looking for trigger events. They're then personalizing emails based on that. And so in the ones we're running account-based plays against, where we already have a ton of marketing dollars, it's like the rep ought to do their very best to be well-researched, sincere, and pleasantly persistent with them.
Love it. You've teased us so many times with these account-based plays. I'm wondering if we could pivot into how we execute. Now that people understand, hey, we've got the ICPs, we've got a persona set up. How do you actually, track and come up with the different ideas for all these plays?
It's a great question. And so, this question just came up internally as we were talking about where the templates come from. But we are in the Good to Great. They talk about the idea of the fox and the hedgehog. And so the idea is the fox has many ways to defeat the hedgehog. The fox is a really wily animal, and the hedgehog has but one way to defeat the fox, just rolls up into a ball. And so when we're thinking about account-based plays, we want to be foxes. We want to try a lot of different things. And so we have a lot of different motions going, and we're always perpetually switching out messaging. That one was a real dud. We thought it would work. That's a stinker. Let's get that out of there. And so a lot of work being done from both sales and sales development to optimize for messaging. But if you think about like a true account-based play, and I'll just sort of share my screen again, this is something that our marketing team is doing, and present here. This is what an account-based play looks like for us, and this is for our top tier accounts we're working with. A few things. We are doing LinkedIn ads, Terminus ads. We build landing pages for them. We do events for them like the food truck. We're sending direct mail, which is the blueprint campaigns. But then also we have like personalized post-demo videos, which are really powerful. We're sending swag. We use Triblio to do automated web personalization. We have headset pilots, lunch and learns, all these different things. Like we are really, when you think about being a fox, we are really, really intent on trying a lot of different motions to be able to make sure that we're gaining attention and interest and really aligning with this company's goals. And some things that we have done that I think are really powerful. We have done account-specific landing pages. And so we set up these landing pages. We will personalize the messaging to say, and go and check out, all these, how we feel about you guys on this personalized landing page. or we're doing videos. I think really powerful. You'll see in the bottom left-hand side, we're doing rep videos through another Canadian organization, Vidyard. They're incredible. If you're not using it, video is the next wave of personalization. But then also our marketing team is helping support some of these post demo with things like this video on the right-hand side, where we're doing some simple things like just swapping in the company's logo, for example. If you were to be able to see on the dialer here, you'd notice that the person they're calling is actually the name of our champion at the organization. Just some really simple things that don't take a lot of effort, but have a really high impact with our people, because it makes them the hero of the story. It puts them as the star of the show. And then also some direct mail. This is something there's nothing new under the sun. I believe Einstein has been attributed to that quote. You may not believe it, but direct mail is back. And if you're not necessarily getting in here, then you're kind of missing an opportunity. Because the facts are, with the prevalence of sales engagement software like SalesLoft, a lot of reps are putting a lot of people on rom pom pace, set it and forget it style automated cadences and just burning down the forest. And so I saw a stat the other day. There was 132 billion B2B emails being sent every day, and 78% of those get deleted instantly. And so email has been used and now overused as a channel. And what you're seeing is things like phone are having a resurgence, but also direct mail is just a way to break through the noise. And that's all you're trying to do. You're looking for the one sympathetic ear inside the business. And this describes our Modern Sales City, our journey campaign. This describes how we'll be interacting with them and hopefully giving them something to blueprint their own go-to-market strategies to be able to break into their key accounts with as well.
So this sounds like a phenomenal amount of work. Now, these are all just for your COM ones.
That's right.
You run the same plays across all ICPs. So, no, I think we're using COM and ICP interchangeably here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Cool.
And so no, our tier twos will not get like I use the food truck as sort of the simple example, but they will not necessarily get those things. They don't get closing support from like a branded headset pilot program. They don't get custom swag. They get default swag. They don't get landing pages, but they get web personalization. And what happens is you go down the ICP 1, 2, and 3, the marketing engine becomes a little bit more automated, like automated web personalization, rather than high intensity building a custom video for this particular person to show them how much we want their business, or a custom landing page.
Gotcha. So it's not necessarily the plays that are changing. It's the level of personalization as you sort of work your way down.
On the marketing side, it certainly is. From a sales side, we still want to be deeply personal with all of our accounts. And so, even if it's a COM 3, we feel like if we've done our homework correctly, this is still a really good account for us for a lot of reasons, whether it's short-term revenue upside, whether it's long-term brand recognition, whether it is breaking into a new industry. So we still feel like there's a lot of value there in those. And so for COM 1, 2, and 3, we are still deeply personalizing, but from our marketing perspective, they are not investing as many man or woman hours to be able to build out assets and artifacts to be able to deliver to them. So really it does fall more on the shoulders of the seller in our COM 3s really.
Gotcha. Now I want to leave a few minutes just so we can do some Q&A at the end here for everybody that's hung around. Thank you so much. Now is a good time. If you're still hanging around, you got some questions for Derek, look at that Q&A button at the bottom. If you're listening on the podcast and you're not live, sorry, there's no Q&A button. But everybody look at that Q&A button at the bottom, start filling that up with questions, and we're going to get you in about 5 minutes here. I've got two last questions for Derek. So tell me about some of I want to hear about some of your favorite plays, right? The food truck sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Totally. Now I'm hungry, thanks. What are some of your other favorite plays?
So there's a great Gary Vaynerchuk, the guy who started with wines.com. The guy is the marketing genius of the world, Vaynerchuk Media, where he told a story about someone buying wine, and he went out and looked on their social media feed and found that they were a big fan of, I want to say it was the Jets, and he bought an autographed jersey and sent them to the person because, again, it wasn't super expensive compared to what the person was spending. And he said the guy never even said thank you. And so he ended up, a few weeks later, someone came in and placed an order 3X that size and said, I was referred by a friend. By the way, I'm a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. And so you think about it, that really what you're trying to do is truly surprise and delight the people that you're engaged with. You may say, Derek, that's a high bar to surprise and delight. I can tell you that we met with a out at Dreamforce a couple weeks ago, we met with a prospect that we've been working with. And as we were having the conversation, it turned out he's a huge Patriots fan. And so we actually did Amazon Now and had a Patriots bear delivered to give to him. We found him at an event that night. And so we got this for your kid. And so it's anything you can do to truly delight the person is a really powerful thing. And so we do custom videos, and that's one of the things that's been really powerful from a video art perspective. It humanizes the seller. Our friend Matt Admonson, he came from Marketo. He said, look, I know it's possible to send out a ton of automated, authentic looking emails, but the number one thing you have to do is prove you're not a robot. And so whenever we have our sellers hold up a whiteboard next to themselves on the screen and cite something from their LinkedIn profile, really powerful. One of my favorite stories is one of our sellers went out to research a prospect, and the guy referenced being a Harry Potter fan in his LinkedIn profile, which seems like a weird place to do it, but hey, I'll let him do him. And so our rep wrote an email called The Deathly Hallows and started off by saying, hey, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan as well. My favorite character is Professor Snape, and my favorite book is The Deathly Hallows. And he sort of goes and builds this great amount of credibility. And the guy responded back with, holy shit, best prospecting email I've seen in years. And it's those sorts of things. I think anything you can do to be able to delight the person, whether it's through personalization and research, whether it's through channel for things like direct mail, or things like video, whether it's through presentation, whether it's a gift that's given to someone, whether it is something that is high impact, like we'll hire a sales trainer to come in for you, again, because the account value is potentially high, because we really want you to feel successful and that we're invested. So all of these different plays are things that we've run and continue to run, but I think it really at the core starts with understanding deeply something about them, whether this is organizationally, like are they getting ready to IPO? Great. They've got crazy growth goals. How can you align to that? If they're, and about the person, what does the person say? What do they think? What are they doing in their spare time? And something that's a channel that I think's been forgotten is really social at this point. And I think reps are using it wrong. But being able to go out and not only research them, but follow them, not necessarily contact them. In the early days of LinkedIn, you had to say how you knew them. And I always looked and I couldn't find the button for sales reps stalking this person. And no matter where they live.
That was the friend button.
Yeah, it's like other. It is like, what's their email address? I'm like, I don't know their email address. It's the worst. How can I get this so wrong? But now they've removed that sort of validation test. So it's a lot easier to connect. So I think the connect is now something that people are getting a barrage of requests on. So you follow them and then go out, and if they tweet something, like something, they favorite a piece of content, it allows you to have some mutual ground then if you do truly believe that the thing is interesting or valuable, and you can now engage in it with them. Something I see done sort of, and it is paper thin transparent, is the person will follow me on social media. They'll then favorite something and they'll retweet it all at the same time. It's like, wow, you really got a ton of value in the 19 seconds you were on my social feed. It always happens to be the second or third thing. And that doesn't look right. Like it's genuinely about understanding them and building a relationship. And I think that's where a lot of people are getting social selling wrong as part of these account-based plays, is they're doing it because the play says to, not because they actually hope to find something interesting and the person to be awesome. And I want to get to know them. Like I want to be them for Halloween. You hope that's what you're going to find. And instead the reps begrudgingly just hitting the follow button, and they're not necessarily trying to get into the head and understand the things that matter to that person.
I think I want to be you for Halloween. I don't think I could nail the accent.
I'm going to be you for Halloween. I'll work my Canadian accent.
Yeah, there you go. Just drink a lot of beer and you'll be fine.
Fair enough.
So counterpoint to some of your favorite plays. Can you tell me about some plays that maybe haven't worked out, or maybe some mistakes you've made along the way?
Some of the mistakes, and we've got a lot of them. I think those are the things that you remember the most. I can tell you that not paying attention to the list has snake bit me a couple times, and that is one of the most important things. We've got a bunch of SDRs running plays against the list, and if the list doesn't look and feel right, it truly is never going to work. You think about any sort of funnel, whether it is a marketing funnel, whether it's your pipeline, changes that happen higher up in the funnel always have a huger impact because of the fact that, look, you think about a sales funnel. If I could change my close rate by 2% or just work twice as many deals, I'd rather work twice as many deals. And so when you start with a flawed list, that really is the kiss of death. And what will happen is you'll go in and you'll say, the account base doesn't work for me. And Henry Ford was quoted as saying, whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right. And so if you weren't really sure on it and you were going to dip a toe in the water, the list will be the thing that will prevent you from running an account-based play. Other things that have been super challenging. On our, we treated a symptom recently, and it was list related. And that the symptom was we saw a lower than expected open rate on some of our MCP messaging. And we started looking, we ran what we called Operation Make the Email Template Suck Less. It was sort of a internal code name that no one will ever figure out what we were doing. Because the response rates were lower than we expected. And we do this fire drill and we change all the templates and we're swapping them out because we always have this culture of improving and innovating. And then we started, when we didn't see a lift, like, man, did we get that wrong? Like, is it possible that we still are way off message? And then we looked and it was, we had, on our MCPs, we had gone a little too broad. So we're now sending out messages to people who don't necessarily have this pain. And so right sizing the list there was important. Also going account based when it's too small or the value is too low, because it is an undertaking of time. And so I think that's another challenge and another mistake that we made. And it's something that if you can avoid that, if you can really just focus up on accounts that have high yield, high upside, or accounts in the future will, that's where your account-based dollar and effort is best spent.
Great. One last thing I'm curious about. It seems like you guys you're a shop that will try anything.
That's fair.
What's the most, a food truck is pretty out there, but what is the most out there play that you guys have tried, whether it worked or whether it didn't work?
I'll tell you something interesting we're doing tonight. So for those of you on the podcast, tonight is Star Wars premiere night. And so it opens generally in the theaters tomorrow. But tonight, we, Terminus and Everstring, have bought out a theater in Atlanta, Georgia, and we've invited all of our customers to it. And it's one of those things that really, when you think about what it costs, is there an initial cost? Sure, you have to buy every seat in the theater. There's some cost to that. But what is the impact to a person who truly sees the world like you do and is a nerd like Star Wars? Yes, like the way I feel right now.
Yeah.
That has such a huge high impact. So it's a really novel, not necessarily crazy expensive when you think about cost per butt and seat, for example, a thing that you can do, and it gives you the opportunity to go meet them in the lobby, have a conversation with key prospects and clients, and then everyone go and enjoy something that you're centrally aligned on, which is cool sci-fi that is something that I'm crazy nostalgic about since I was a kid. And so I think that's a really powerful and easy thing that a lot of people don't think to do, that can have a really high impact.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, Derek.
Sure.
So we're gonna pivot to some questions. Before we do, if you're thinking about, hey, what are some other plays that we can run? We had Franco Caporale from Branch Analytics on the show a couple months ago. He spent probably half an hour talking exactly about this from the marketing side. These are the plays that I run so that my SDRs always have a great reason to reach out. Nice. You've heard Derek talk about Matt Amundsen. We had him on the show. I think he was episode 2, Everstring. Yeah, Matt was
terrific. So smart.
Amazing. And then you talk about videos. Well, we had Terrence Kwok from Vidyard. I don't know why I'm gesturing this way, but
that's the way all the other podcasts are.
Yeah.
With my hands was that Ricky Bobby, I believe. So that's a very Southern thing for me to know, right?
Hold them like this. Yeah. So Terrence Kwok was on the podcast. I think he was episode like between 10 and 20. So we've had some of these great guests. If you haven't had a chance to look at them, I encourage you to check them out now. And I think this would be a great time to pivot to some questions for you, Derek.
Absolutely. Fire away.
All right. First comment. Yeah, that's not Aaron Ross. Video says Aaron there. Yeah, that's my bad. I'm Collin. I log in as Aaron's account for this. So yeah, occasionally I get things mixed up.
He looks like an Aaron to me though. And so I know it's Collin, but it could be Aaron, I don't know. They're basically twins separated at birth.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. If you've ever seen both of us, we're essentially brothers. Yeah.
You've never actually seen them in the same place at the same time. It's like Batman and Bruce Wayne. They could be the same person.
Yeah. If you don't know what we look like, we look exactly the same.
Let's go with that.
All right. So how do you approach very large companies for the first time? So the Fortune 500.
So the way that we think about going into these accounts is many, many points of ingress, still lead with relevancy. One of the things that you'll find in the Fortune 500 is you'll find things like 10Ks and 10Qs. And so they're telling you publicly, telling their shareholders what it is that matters to them. And so that level of research is something that's really powerful, particularly as you're trying to break into someone way, way up the value chain. So often where deals go to die is that there's not alignment with corporate objectives. You get in with a line of business person, and yeah, it's going to make their life better, but the people on further up the chain don't necessarily see it that way because it doesn't deeply align, and you can't make it align to one of those things. And so I think by knowing that first, by doing that level of research, there's a lot more information. They have more modern marketing teams talking about, whether they're blogging, writing white papers, doing customer testimonials. They have events that they're doing. There's a lot more things that you can glom onto to be able to drive some level of why you, why now type of relevancy. And then for us, the way that we think about it is we're going in and we will start just a few people down a cadence. So we try and start one per persona. We're not in the carpet bombing game. That isn't something that I think drives results. But I believe it's step 8 in our cadence is say, put someone new in. And so you may only find one EVP of sales, but you may find 5 inside sales leaders. You may find 15 ops resources in a company. And so it gives you the opportunity to go and have multiple people at multiple points on the journey, all hearing from you simultaneously. One of the big debates that happens, and I've seen different people do it different ways, is if you get the one meeting, or do you stop? Do you shut down all cadences? And I've seen different people think about it. It depends on, I think, whether you are trying to go top down and get the whole apple or whether you're going in the side door and trying to get a bite of the apple. But depending on your go-to-market strategy, if you're looking to land and then expand versus storm the gates, you find the one sympathetic ear who has a pain that you can solve, who seems like a champion, who is a mobilizer, who has some level of budget. You got a D or a V type of title, and you might stop, and that may be where you want to end. And then I've heard other organizations who say that they will continue to reach out to their other personas and target people in that account and invite them to the initial meeting that they've already gotten set up with the one person. And so different companies think about it differently. I think knowing when to stop is probably as important as knowing when to start, quite honestly. But that's definitely the way that we think about it is. And one thing to consider whenever we do stagger these people starting through their cadences, because I believe that in a lot of businesses, they probably sit next to each other or have a line of communication. The person leans back and they're like, you just get this note from this company X. What did it say to you? Oh, it said the exact same thing. And it doesn't, again, it takes the level of authenticity out of it. And, it's something that I think can go very wrong. And so by staggering those out, you're able to, if the first person doesn't necessarily engage, then you're working someone else through a similar type of journey with unique personalization to them.
Love it. So thanks, Derek.
Sure.
Next question, somebody who's a big fan, who does all this stuff? Is it the SDRs, the marketing staff? Is it a combination?
It is a combination. So you figure that so marketing holds us crazy accountable, particularly to us actually working the commercial account. So marketing says, look, we've got all this stuff going on for them. We are investing marketing dollars and resources toward them. And so I get a report weekly. It's like, here's the comm accounts that aren't being worked, that haven't been worked in some amount of time. Look, they haven't been DQ'd. So we're not saying that they're bad. We're just saying we haven't gotten around to them yet. And so they hold us crazy, crazy accountable. And then patient or sort of the person that's doing all the things, I was going to say patient zero, but really the person doing all the things is the SDRs. But then from there, if they're doing research, what they do is realize that the AE is connected, I'm connected, our CEO is connected, our new CRO is connected, and they are then bringing through the appropriate people to try and get in there. And it's an important thing. It's not the SDR's job to run the play. That's part of it. We think the play is going to get them to success. It's their job to get into the account with a qualified op. And so if they go in and they take a look on day one, like, oh my goodness, this person went to high school with someone I know, it's like they would go and try and exploit that avenue first before they would actually just sort of blindly run the play over and over and over again. And so marketing owns a huge piece of it. Sales development owns a huge piece of it. And then the AE, something we're doing on a subset of really, really strategic accounts is we've had the reps create account plans and jointly go to market with the sales development reps. So one going high, one going low, and really trying to penetrate the account by any means necessary. So something you can't do account plans for everybody or do them effectively. As I mentioned, we got 2,600 accounts that we're saying are important, and we'd spend the entire quarter writing the plans up, wouldn't have the time to execute. And so we did it for a subset. It's been really impactful so far.
Perfect. So we've got, I can't keep you forever, although wouldn't mind. Um, so we've only got time for, let's say, 2 more questions here. Let me just have a quick through here. So we've got somebody who's in a startup and they serve a lot of markets, but they haven't identified their ICP. So that being the case, do you have any suggestions for getting there, or how hard would you do account-based plays with no ICP?
I don't know if I do account-based without an ICP. Something that we've done internally is we've done what we call experimental cadences. And the idea is we go out and we'll take one rep and we will arm them with a unique cadence. An example of this is like, it's not experimental, but it's sort of a one rep sort of cadence that we're running is toward VC backed. Anyone who gets new VC backed, and we have someone exclusively focused on that. We also have done financial services. And what you find is the rep sort of owns the knowledge and becomes the tribal leader around that particular market or vertical. And then they are running plays. Like an example is they may not call them business development or may not call them sales reps in a particular industry. They may think that's an ugly term, and really, in legal, it's not necessarily, they don't have salespeople, but they have business development people. And so effectively running cadences out to those markets with permutations of your messaging and letting one person own it instead of letting everyone own it, and then following up to get feedback on what's working and what's not, is something you can do to help figure out which target market is the appropriate one. It's not that I don't love automation. I think automation serves a really important point. I do think it's really quick. You're quickly able to really jade your target buyer by showing you don't know anything about them, by going full faucet open. You just turn the fire hose out to a particular target market. And so I do think there's a middle ground there, but it's going out and it's picking some of the key accounts, putting a rep on it and saying, you get in there and you make it happen, and then take the learnings from that. A story from my early days in marketing automation is we sold marketing automation and we thought, well, marketing agencies would love this. And so we went out and we got a list of all of the marketing agencies here in Atlanta. We called them all and not one was interested. And we quickly put that on our list of prohibited industries because they didn't service B2B. They didn't care about landing pages. They wanted the next Super Bowl ad on the TV ad or cut out in a store. And so we had an assumption that our message would land with these folks. And it didn't take a lot of time to validate that it did not. And so I would say go boldly into these markets with an exploratory sort of tiger team approach and quickly figure out, like, if this is not landing, then pull back and divert resources somewhere else where you're seeing some early impact.
Beautiful. Last question, and this is a 2-part question. So
the answer is walks on the beach and pina coladas getting caught in the rain. Oh, is that? That's not okay. Sorry, I may have jumped to conclusions there on that one.
Yeah. Sorry, dater number 2.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So questions about your Star Wars event. Are people coming from all over the country? Are you doing sort of events all over the place?
Well, and so Everstring has got a couple around. We are just doing one of their Atlanta ones. And so I think they've got one in Boston, New York, San Francisco that they're supporting with different folks. But yeah, we're not flying people in for it. That actually would cause the cost per, I use the term, but the cost per person in seat to go up dramatically. And it would be hard to forecast because if they decide 2 days before they want to come, their flight is astronomical. Collin, if you were coming all the way in from Toronto, may not even be able to get here. We may have to fly you down on a private jet. So we kept it more as a regional field marketing event. And so we're only bringing people from the local area.
Gotcha. And the second part of that question is more of an ask, but would you be able to let us know your ROI at the end of the day? Obviously, sure, once you ran it.
Absolutely. It's something we'd be more than happy to do. It's something I will say that we're using it as a combination customer love as well as lead generation engine. But, customers, sometimes they buy more. And so it isn't necessarily, we'd have to divide it into new business versus existing business ROI, but our SDR has been great to support it. We've had our reps go in and invite all of their ops. And so it was powerful that our account managers and our customer love folks are inviting customers, SDRs are inviting prospects, AEs are inviting pipeline opportunities. And so it's sort of this neat group of people. And what will really happen, and this is the facts, is that our happy customers will talk to some of our great prospects and they'll help move the ball forward, even though that isn't why we're doing it. We just know that when those groups of people come together, people can't not say nice things about us. And so, it's something that will help build credibility with our opportunities and validate our focus on customer success and customer growth.
It's the new nerdy version of Mark Benioff's steak dinners idea.
That's exactly right. It is.
Bringing them all together. Get them jazzed about Chewbacca.
It's totally the right thing. But very, very, very powerful to have, customers selling to customers are validating, customers selling to prospects, and validating the goodness of selecting SalesLofts. So we certainly are looking forward to the event tonight.
Right on. Well, Derek, let us know how it goes. Thank you so much for being on the show. One last thing before we go. I know a bunch of you are live right now. If you enjoyed the show, check us out on iTunes. We're the Predictable Revenue Podcast. Hit that subscribe button. We also have Derek shared some slides today. So if you want to check out those visuals, you can look for us on YouTube, Predictable Revenue Podcast. Just hit the subscribe button. It's one way that you can help us out, bring more guests on the show by broadening our reach, because inevitably people see the show, they like the show, they reach out. We get probably about 25% of our guests from listeners reaching out. So help us reach some more great people to get on the show by hitting subscribe. Thanks again, Derek. This was amazing.
Thanks, everyone.